Hey, how are you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing all right. All right, I'm talking to Rod Amador, creative producer and storyboard artist. Thank you so much for being here today and talking to us. It's a real pleasure. You were recommended by Mark Garns, who just presented last night, actually. He was fabulous, very inspirational. Do you know him to be inspirational? Because kind of
Oh
nice.
yeah, I have known Mark for many, many years, and he is he's someone to follow and someone to aspire to be. The guy's got a lot of good stuff going for him, and he's a go-getter. So yeah,
Yeah,
he's great.
his topic was chasing opportunities and
Yeah.
like hustling and
Oh,
made
never
me
ends.
feel he made me feel like I could stand a little taller, which is nice.
Yeah, yeah. He's really great for that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well we were just talking and like you just started a YouTube channel as well. How's that going?
Yeah. Yeah, I jumped into that crazy pool. Um, yeah, so it's fairly new, and I'm learning as I'm going. So I apologize for all the mistakes in it. Um, but yeah, I mean, I'm a YouTube consumer myself. Been for a long time, and I spend a lot of time watching explainer videos. Like it can range from like how do you fix a sink to like how to fix a car. And I also watch a lot of the vlogs, people that go around eating different types of food all over the world. So I've been doing this for quite a while. So I'm like, I have a lot of insight in the animation industry, and I'm sure it would probably I'm sure it would be useful for someone that's got a question about whether it be storytelling or animation. You just type it in the YouTube, and most often you will get a reply. Like you'll get at least one video someone's made. So I'm like, hey, I might as well jump into that because is something that I've always wanted to do. So it's daunting, but it's very gratifying at the same time.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Um, Sometimes I talk to artists. It's really nice that you're doing that because a lot of times I talk to artists who have 5 to 10 years of experience, and I ask them to be a mentor and I ask them to be on the program, and the response I get is, I don't have anything to say. And I'm like, oh no, this is
Yeah.
devastating because I know you have so much to say. And I'm always trying to, I find that with a conversation like this, I can kind of bring it out in them, but I have to get
Yeah,
them to this conversation. And
for
it's,
sure.
it's really interesting the way people kind of look at that and judge what they do or don't have to say. So I mean, I appreciate anybody that goes online, and especially now that I do it. It's hard. It's not easy. It's not easy every
Yeah.
day, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I mean, you would know this. Like, I think if you have one production under your belt,
Yeah,
you have something to talk about because
absolutely.
you have gone through what it entails, like in like a professional setting, to be in charge of something, whether it's just one task or in charge of people, and following it all the way through from beginning to end, and seeing all the different facets, all the ups and downs. There's going to be conflict and resolution every single day of that job.
Mhm, mhm.
So people just don't realize that they have that, and they every day that goes by when you're doing a job professionally, you're basically leveling up your IQ in that job, and without
Mhm,
even knowing it. And then
mhm.
all you have to do is just get it going, like get start talking about it, and it's there.
Yeah, it's from day one. I think I 100% agree. You were mentioning that you are releasing your next short or your next series for your
Yeah.
animated videos. Would you mind giving people a little clue of what that is? Because when you mentioned it, I was like, oh yeah, we have so many people on our server asking about like
Yeah.
tips for this stuff. Like it's really hard to find.
Yeah. So um, the channel is about storytelling and animation insights in general. I mean, I could go on and on about every topic, but I wanted to zero in on storytelling and storyboarding because that's
Mhm.
that's sort of my specialty. And they're not super long for now, and they're mostly explainer videos about like, oh, maybe the tricks and tips about Storyboard Pro, how to battle um, distractions as a storyboard artist. It's challenging for anyone, but storyboarding is especially really really tough to stay on task. And so, following the explainers approach, I'm going to do a multi-part series on visual storytelling from from writing all the way to finish animatic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just work on a segment or scene, maybe sequence, and write it, design it, conceptualize it, do my own scratch voice tracks and everything, and then bring it all the way through to finish animatic. And then hopefully, gives giving people a different sort of angle, different perspective on how I go about my process.
We're about to launch into a new venture, and it's a big hint. It's about creating a short. So it'll be really helpful. I'm actually looking forward to uh, watching them because I don't know any of this. I mean, I do, but it's not. I haven't done that deep dive. I've never really created a short. I've always been a part of a process that creates a short. So now that we're kind of looking
Yeah,
at something from a more bigger picture, I know that this is stuff that, especially audio, I'm not an audio person, so it'll be really nice
same,
to go in and have that
same here.
information. Yeah, to make the process easier. I think making shorts is so much fun, and it's a lot easier, but it's a daunting task.
For
So
sure.
I love that you're putting that information out there. You
Oh,
mentioned that
thanks.
you do a lot of reading about this stuff. What books do you recommend? Do you have any books?
Um, Not at the moment. I'm pretty bad for that. I can send you my books. But yeah, I'm really
We'll get the
terrible. Like when
photos.
people ask me like, "Oh, what book?" I'm like, "Oh shoot, you know what? Right
I'm not
now
hearing the
my
title.
head is like a spider web." So I'm like, okay. Um, but basically, just to summarize it is, if I could summarize what I've learned from that,
Hmm.
as an animation person or industry professional, uh, a, a lot of times you read a script, um, and you get to your task, whether you're doing design or you're doing animation or you're doing whatever, and you don't really understand how that story was put together. You just know that it's funny, you laugh, you may or not laugh, whatever, but you don't think about it. And I did that for almost 17 years of my career, after looking at hundreds and hundreds of scripts, from being an artist all the way to executive producer. And you think you kind of, well, I thought I knew what a storytelling was, or
Hmm.
good storytelling versus bad storytelling. And I think, when I produced my short a few years ago, 2015, and it didn't do very well. Um, and looking back now, I broke every rule you can imagine for storytelling.
Hmm.
So I mean, I've been able to draw and do everything else, but the foundation was not um, was not working.
Hmm.
So um,
We
it's like a
know when a story
recipe.
falls flat. We always know when a story falls flat. You know, like you can
Yeah,
have all these bits and pieces, and you can be watching a series, and you know when you've got a nail biter versus a scroll, or you
and
know
the
what I mean.
difference is I now know why certain things work, and
Hmm.
why stories work and why stories don't work. And it's literally like following a recipe. You can mix and match things, right? You look at Quentin Tarantino, for example. He kind of it, it just looks like a mess, but there's a there's a method to that madness. Like
Exactly.
he's following traditional storytelling techniques that have been used for thousands of years, and It really just boils down to desire, conflict, and resolution.
Yeah.
That's all it is. Whether it's a comedy, drama, action, whatever, it's all the same. But if you understand all those points, you, it makes more sense of why things work and why things don't work. Um, so it's for me, it's more of a growing, creatively growing as a professional, understanding that a little better instead of just sort of uh, thinking that I did. Um, because I had to, right? It was my job. I had to understand that each script needed certain things, right? Like how many designs, or this script is going to be X
Hmm.
minutes long,
Hmm.
but never really understanding that. And to make a final point about that, they don't really teach you that in school. And going back to when I was at Sheridan, there was a class for, I think they called it like English class. It was some sort of English class. And I know that probably 99% of all my classmates, we wanted to get out of that class as soon as possible because on our mind, it was like, I want to go back to drawing. I want to draw. I want to draw, right? Like we just wanted to get better at drawing or
Hmm.
animation, whatever. So we never took it seriously. And I mean, it's quite blurry, but I don't remember ever hearing about story structure. It was just like some generic
It was like
class.
a, it was like a chapter. It was
Yeah, I
like a
think
day.
they had to do that. I think they
Like
had
it
to
was
do
like
that.
a day. I kind of remember. I remember in being in English class going through that, like the
Yeah.
story arcs and you got the big one, you got the little one.
Yeah, I think it was
And that's
also
what
part
it's
of the prerequisite of the curriculum. You had to have an English class in the curriculum. I
Mhm.
think that was one of the things that I remember. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well,
But
it's pretty cool. I'm looking forward to the series because I know that that's something that I could use right now. So it'll be really good.
well,
Um, you know,
I hope I do okay. But yeah, I mean, I'll admit I'm not a writer. Like I have never claimed to be a writer, and I probably never will be a writer compared to the people I've worked with who are like amazing.
something
Um,
tells me
but
you're gonna do a good job.
I will keep trying. Let's just put it that way.
Well, I think what's happening right now is you're having that moment of I don't know if I have anything to say.
Yeah,
You have something to say. Yeah,
for
well,
sure.
I asked you to help out with our animation department because you have a lot of animation experience. As you mentioned, you're an executive producer. You've helped, you were a part of a studio in a
Yeah,
big way. And for this
yep,
freelancing month, we really wanted to approach animation from a different angle, like giving freelancers advice. This whole month, we've been like trying to in our art department, we're going to be talking about organization, how to keep yourself organized.
right,
And even though we're talking directly to an art director, it's not like you can't apply the same knowledge to all the departments. And so, really, for animation, we wanted to figure out a way to get a bit of a different angle on how to approach applying to work at a studio.
yeah,
How to stand out, how to make your demo reel stand out, how to just make the application process stand out because application processes have also changed
yeah,
drastically over the
hmm,
years. HR
yeah,
has become bigger and a bigger part of it. And there's
yeah,
an element of looking professional that, and this is Mark went over this too in a really lovely way. There's an element of looking professional that you must master. And so we were really hoping to dive into that with you today. And
sure.
that's kind of what we're going to be talking about when we have you on as an EPP mentor.
Yeah. Hopefully, I can bring, like I said, a different perspective on that subject. Yeah, because I come from the pencil and paper era. So I
Mhm.
started as a character layout artist or a
You've seen it
posing
all.
artist, as we call it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I did some of that. I did some flash animation back in the day. I never really got into a lot of like rigged animation with Toon Boom and 3D animation. but I certainly understand all the fundamentals because going to Sheridan helped a ton, and just being involved in animation, you kind of know what's good and what's not good.
Okay, so I mean that's like the biggest question, I guess that I have, and we can dive into it as we get a little bit further. But how do
Yeah,
you like? What are the pitfalls? What are the things that make people stand out, and what are the pitfalls that kind of make them like, cast aside? But like, especially right now, what's going to happen
yeah,
is a lot of people are going to be applying to jobs, and I've been in the situation where I've had a lot of resumes and applications
yeah,
for a process come my way, and I had to filter. And it's you're, it's almost like you have to look for the no's. It's like because you're building a pile of yeses, but you're looking for the no's, and it's like no, 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 no. Okay, no, no,
yeah,
no, 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 no. And then the next level is you see all that's left. And then from there, you have to make that decision of like, well, if I'm only hiring 3 people or 5 people, and I
yeah,
have a pile of 70, I'm still filtering for no's. And it's like, it's just, you're chiseling away at this mountain. So how do
yeah.
we filter people to the top?
Well, I would say I am very biased to great drawing. So my eye will always follow a well-drawn character background prop. It's
Hmm.
just it's just how my mind works. So for me, it's appeal is important, and
Hmm.
I'm not just saying like a really nice drawing, but you have to look like say if you're sending a PDF. I mean, it really depends, right? Like if it's a rigging portfolio, it will be different, right? But
Hmm.
let's say we're looking at an animation portfolio, somebody who wants to get into animation. If you have previous work, obviously a reel is great, right? That's always good to have. But appeal is something that is overlooked, and I mean appeal across the board. What type of font you use, what colors you use,
Hmm.
the layout of that font, the kerning, the spacing, like um, it has to look appealing to you. If it looks boring, it's going to look probably boring to everyone else. So, and I don't mean to become like a professional graphic designer, but you have to like what you're submitting, right?
Yeah.
So at
Hmm.
least you can say to yourself, I liked what I handed in, and give that your best shot. So appeal is really important. The next thing that I would suggest is try and build like a little trail of crumbs, right? It's like you
Never
want
heard
to
that one
give the
before.
person inciting, or you want to incite the person to keep looking at your portfolio. So if it's a PDF, you want to incite the person to keep scrolling down, like scroll wheel down. If
Hmm.
it's on paper, I don't know if anyone does that anymore. It's like you want to incite the person to keep turning. So how do you do that? Well, you maybe start with an image or something at the beginning that it's like, okay, this is what I'm going to show you, and then you go through each section showing different images that are linked together somehow. What you don't want to do is put a portfolio together that it looks like it's just been thrown together, like without any thought, because
Hmm.
most people are very intelligent, right? So they're gonna catch on to that and be like, this was thrown together, and this person doesn't care. So it's part of like actually taking a little bit of time to 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 piece it together with some thought. And I think that comes through a lot. And from looking at portfolios when I used to go to industry day, when I was hiring, I would always appreciate the people that would spend time on their appeal and their presentation of their portfolio.
Hmm.
And like I said, it would start from the way that they laid out their text, right? Like if it was nicely laid out, again, doesn't have to be pro, but there was some attempt to make it look appealing.
Yep.
And I always appreciated that, keeping in mind that I knew that they were students, right? Like I'm not hiring a new uh, applicant with 10 years of experience. So it's just making your portfolio have something or things that are going to incite someone to look at it and go back to it and maybe share it with colleagues. It and I'm drawing
The
on
sharing is
the
important. Yeah.
virality of things now. Make it
Mm-hmm.
viral,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because I'm learning that from doing my own YouTube stuff. Because I'm terrible with social media, like I horrible. Um, but there's something about becoming viral, and it doesn't mean that you have to have a million followers. It's just that portfolio needs to leave an impression on the person who's looking at it
Mm-hmm.
that they're going to want to look at it again. And
Mm-hmm.
then they're going to say, well, you know what? I saw this with one portfolio. Take a look at it. And they're going to share it. It's no different than you hitting the share button, right? They just go here, forward, send it to hiring manager or director or whoever's looking at the portfolio. So yeah, it's really about crafting the portfolio with intent, and then understanding that what you're putting there is to impress. You don't want to turn off somebody by by putting something that is that shouldn't be there. So
Have
it's
you
being selective.
have you read a lot of cover letters?
Some sometimes it helps because it gives you a bit more of a context
Mm-hmm.
about the person. So it's not just a bunch of artwork. Um, it depends on the job. To be honest, it depends on the job. If
People,
it's
yeah,
more of
people
a
are always
if
asking if they should include cover letters. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think they give you the option. A lot of the HR templates, they have the option to upload one. I think it really depends on the seniority of the job. If it's something like more of a supervisor or somewhere in the managerial sort of level of a production, I think it would be beneficial because then you could add a little more context about yourself, right? So it's a little bit of a bio. It's 3 paragraphs, no more. Cover letters should not be more than three paragraphs. I think 300, 400 characters or words. Sorry. Um, and it's for someone to take literally less than a minute to read, right? You should be able to read that cover letter very very quickly, not like glaze over it, but you got to read it and be like, oh, okay, I get this where this person's coming from. So your that cover letter is meant to give yourself a little, a little bit of a bio sort of insight to the person who's looking at it, because they haven't spoken to you yet. You haven't had an interview, right?
Mhm.
So it's they're useful, but again, I think it depends on the job.
And what about emailing? Because I'm not sure how if I'm going to word this correctly, but we get a lot of questions where people are nervous to follow up. They're nervous to they don't want to look too pushy. They don't want to look like they're not interested.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice about following up with emails after you've applied? Uh,
Yeah. Wait a week. So like, uh, yeah, I would say wait a week because that gives enough time for somebody if they were traveling or if they were sick, giving that person the benefit of the doubt that they
mhm.
haven't got to your stuff yet. If you don't hear back in a week, then you can politely ask if they've had a chance to look at your stuff. But I would say a week is good,
Is
or
there
like five
anything?
business days.
Sorry, 5 days, 5 business days.
5 business days, yeah, or a
Yeah.
week, yeah.
Okay. And then I guess like what would you say is the biggest tips to avoid? Like what could somebody do that would automatically get them in the no pile? I know not
Anything?
reading. I'm always telling people to make sure that you're reading and understanding the instructions.
Yeah,
Um, work with a lot of people who sometimes have a hard time with verbal instructions or like reading
yeah,
instructions. So
yeah,
just recommend that they can get somebody else to read the instructions to them because that's another way that
yeah,
they'll take it in. But
definitely.
those instructions are so important. They're literally the keys and the guidelines in the process. If you mess up one step, animation studios are really all about following the process, following the rules.
Yeah,
And those instructions are not always written down. So it's almost like that first indicator. If you can't follow this set of rules, you're going to have a hard time here. So,
yeah. If you're able to, if your web browser does a read aloud type of tool, um, you can copy and paste the text and put it in Word. It can read it aloud for you. Um, yeah, or you can have someone else read it to you. But yeah, that's super important. You have to
mhm,
read what the job description is. You have to understand it.
mhm,
Um, and if you're fail short of a couple of the requirements, that doesn't mean that you're not qualified for it. It just means that maybe you should look into talking to the studio and maybe expressing that you want to do this job, and especially if it's your first job, and you'd be willing to learn it.
mhm,
It's giving that willingness to learn. Even though if it says, oh, you need to know this, this, and this, whatever description is, you have to put yourself in a position that you want to learn, that you're open to learning, whatever that is.
hands down. The learning part is really important, especially
Yeah,
because job descriptions are always bigger and more inflated than most people are qualified for. And when you qualify those things, they usually say you're too qualified, and
yeah,
then get into a weird loop. Um, all right. Do you have any other advice on like tips to avoid things that could just automatically put you in that no pile? Like um,
yeah. I
how do you avoid
think
that?
just yeah, even just if you happen to be on emailing terms with the hiring
Mhm,
manager or
mhm,
LinkedIn, um, take the time to just like craft your communication with intent. Remember, you're not sending a text over to your buddy, right? So people may not, they don't know you, right? So they won't respond well to maybe slang or capitalizing letters. Like that's a huge thing. It's like it's it's weird because it happens a lot, but it almost creates a bit of a bump for a lot of people. It's like if you don't capitalize your first letter, right? Like you're not in buddy terms with the hiring manager. So you have to be,
mhm,
it's like it's part of your presentation, right? Like you have to at least craft together a cohesive sentence or sentences of what you're trying to communicate. So I,
mhm,
I think it's like try not to send a message, or whether it's email or LinkedIn or whatnot, that looks sort of crass or unprofessional. Um,
mhm,
and I don't mean you have to come across like you're applying for NASA or anything like that. It's just, that's it's crafted well, and it makes you look serious that you want the job. Yeah. So avoid
uh,
anything like that. Yeah.
applying for jobs are is an emotional process, and you really have to take
Yeah,
those emotions out of
for
that
sure.
communication. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it is totally. It's a nerve-wracking experience for a lot of people, because it has to do with acceptance and rejection, which is part of life.
Mhm,
And it feels amazing when you get accepted, and it feels horrible when you get rejected. Um, so yeah, it's you have to treat it seriously enough that that you have to be prepared for that 50-50 chance, right? That
Mhm.
you will be accepted or you will be rejected. Yeah. So
Okay, and I guess last question, just to round it all off. But I mean, you were a freelancing artist once. What would you say was the biggest lesson that you learned through that process, through going through that gauntlet?
from the freelancing,
Hmm. Putting yourself out there, doing it for
yeah.
yourself, organizing your skills.
Um, yeah, if I don't know, I haven't watched Mark's video yet, but learn the art of the hustle. You have to
That's what
know
it's
how to do
titled.
that, and there's 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 a way of doing it so you don't come across disingenuine. You have to be um, you have to go get it. That's the one thing that when you're freelancing, no one's giving you anything. You have to go get it. So you have to learn how to do that. And I'm sure there's tons and tons of books about freelancing. I haven't read any of it. I just sort of did it. Um, but I think it's just building networks, building relationships, and you're a little bit like a prospector. You know, like you're prospecting for gold or whatever metal or yeah, whatever you're looking for. You're prospecting jobs, and it requires a little bit of planning, right? So you have to do a little bit of research. You have to look at the companies to see who's hiring, um, and yeah, it's something that gets gets better with time, and you never stop learning because I'm still learning certain things. So yeah, it's not that much different than being hired as an employee. The only difference is like a lot of freelancers, you're going to be an independent contractor and you have to track your own taxes and things like that, which is also super important. So yeah, you have to understand that when you're a freelancer, you are going to be taking care of your own taxes.
Right. All right. Well, I have so many other questions, but I think that it's a good idea that we stop now
Sure.
and we leave them for the classes. Yeah. Thank you so much for talking to me this morning, Rod. And
No problem.
I really look forward to diving into this further with you. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it'll be fun. Yeah, yeah. Thanks for having me.
Okay. Thank you. Have a good day.
Yeah, you too.